Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
G'day and welcome to an extra special edition of Thrash and Treasure, the Torture Chamber musical comedy podcast that knew Sense and Sensibility was G.G. Allen's favourite novel. And speaking of nuisance, I'm Aaron, and I'm joined as usual by the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. It's Spencer the Broadway Spy. How's it going?
Really excited for today, Aaron.
Yeah, awesome. You're looking pretty spiffy today, and I'm very proud. But anyways, guess what?
What?
For the 100th time, we get to introduce another legendary diva in the Cat Scratch Club tonight. And there's only one way to describe this incredible artist's career, today's chosen musical. So let's jump off our boogie woogie doom board and dive into a hyper reality to copper squiz at a proper whopper career that's mopped up from whopper to population 11. Topped only after this queen checked out of school twice for one night in Bangkok, a stopover in Metropolis, and a season at Sarsaparilla, which led her to find Latin heat as Eva from Evita, Chiffon from Little Shop of Horrors, Nikki from Sweet Charity, Emily from Follies, and Squeaky from Assassins, plus a dirty dozen or so stage roles, at least 17. Honest, true story. With Hamish and Andy, because we're joined by one of Australia's most wanted actor, singer, dancer, casting director, and rare Aussie unicorns who went from one of the new faces of stage and screen to one of the guilty faces of crime, with shows such as Blue Healers, Blue Bloods, Homeland, Taxi Brooklyn, The Pack, Wentworth, Harrow, Unforgettable, Person of Interest, you betcha, having also served in Law and Order, Criminal Intent, plus further US-bound roles in Alpha House, The Newsroom, The Big C, New Year's Eve, A Gifted Man, and more, before returning to lay down the family law. So let's get cracking celebrating an icon in her best life and help your sisters throw one of your neighbours a huge local g'day as we have a quirky Kiki with one of Australian arts' alpha assets. But don't worry, we're only shooting blanks, so there's no parental guidance needed for our secret bridesmaids business, because it is only a very small business. So while we're surviving summer in Utopia, please help me welcome to our Jones family Christmas, Spencer, Chrismica, this true leader of Mustangs FC, who drove the lady in the van, Lorinda, into the woods after, Mamma Mia, a musical mystery happened on the way to Chuggington. So grab your golden shield before Dragon Lady tortures the place with her incendiary metamorphosis, and she would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids and their overdue rent in the original Australian cast. So let's squeegee our share screen for the truly inspirational Queen Fiona Choi. Welcome to the Torture Chamber. How are you going? Goodness gracious me.
I'm great. Look, I'm just flabbergasted by that incredible introduction, and then my brain started going, what's he going to include? He's including some pretty out there things in there, things that I didn't even know people realized I had done. Yep. So kudos to you for doing your research or reading my resume.
Yes, I had a little bit of help from the original Rent program from 1999.
Oh my goodness. No wonder there's these things that are just crazy blasts from the past. Things that I just think, oh gosh, no young person like Spencer like a lot of these shows would mean nothing to a young person these days. But that's, how awesome.
Yep.
I don't think you've missed anything out.
No, actually I did. There was a few things I left out that I couldn't fit in.
Right.
Purely for the rhythm.
Sure. No, very, very impressive. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. I'm so thrilled to have you on. Obviously, you're in Rent, and I've said before, that show, that production, that changed my life.
I think it changed all of our lives, that production. That was my first, for a lot of us, it was our first professional, full-on musical, and it was just the beginning of an incredible journey. And I know you've had Miggy on,
yep,
but we're still very close. We've tracked each other's journeys, and it's still incredible to see where we've all come from, being these wide-eyed people.
You see that with a lot of Rent casts, Broadway with West End, any of the people who have done that show, you see that they're all still close. You have Anthony Rapp and Adam Pascal who do concerts together all the time because that experience made them so close. And I think it's just something about that show that causes you to become a family on stage.
It is, absolutely. And, and while we all did, of course, play characters, and some of us played a multitude of characters, but there was such an element in that show of really being yourself in it, your whole heart and your whole soul. You were just yourself. So we really interacted with each other personally on stage each and every night. And so that's where the bond came, I think.
Yeah. Obviously, Rent is back touring Australia. Hallelujah. And we were both at opening night, which was very, very exciting.
We were. I was an absolute emotional mess on opening night, and
Yes,
they made a point of inviting as many members of the OG cast as possible, and we all kind of just gathered together, and we just couldn't, it was 25 years ago now.
Yep.
Over 25 years ago, that we just felt the power of it all over again. But it was also because we really wanted to gather. It was our opportunity to gather and mourn the loss of a couple of our original cast members. Two of the fellas that came over from New York that have passed away, and it was the first time a few of us had seen each other, and it was a pretty intense experience.
Yeah, and especially to be at that show as well. Like, could have been any show really, but it happened to be Rent. And
well, to see that show, because these two guys, especially Clifton Oliver, who was one of our original swings, but one of the roles that he covered beautifully was Collins, and Mark Richard Ford, who was our Collins. They've both passed away. And so every time there was any beautiful moment, and particularly the I'll Cover You reprise, it was just, it was very, very difficult to separate life from performance in that moment, for sure.
can imagine. But I was absolutely honoured to be invited. And well, I was 14 when I saw it, and it smacked me awake. It wasn't just the No Day But Today. It was just everything about the production. And this family you speak of, the bond you had, that came off. We felt that bond with you guys, and that show changed my outlook on life. When I found out back in October that I was going to opening night, I had only asked, can I be put on the press list just for an interview? But anyways, I got an email 3 hours after my sister died saying that I was going to Rent.
Oh.
So this was October. This was like, 6 months or 5 months before, it's even opening in Melbourne. My nephew is 14. I've raised him since he was 6 months old for my sister, and he lost his mother that day that I found out that I was going. So I took him on opening night, and we were given front row seats. In December, I lost a great supporter of mine, not just a friend, a supporter, someone who believed in my work, brought copies and copies of my novels, not just for himself, but to put in schools, and liked every post and retweeted everything or whatever. And then in January, one of our past guests on TNT, we lost him, Ryan Tousell, from, early on, like episode 13 or something. And he was someone that I really believed in. He was a brilliant musician. But then at the start of February, a really, really good friend of mine, Susie, lost her battle to cancer. So I went to this Rent opening night, a broken mess, like you wouldn't believe, just like I was when I was 14 years old. And I got to take my nephew, who just lost his mother, who just gone through this horrible tragedy after she was in a coma for a month. It was quite a devastating time for us. I didn't have a relationship with her, but he did for the most part. And so it really did feel like, I know it sounds dumb, but Jonathan Larson sort of swooped down and said, hey, Aaron, remember this message. You have this poster on your wall for every recording you do, a Rent poster. You've listened to those songs thousands and thousands and thousands of times and taken the strength that you needed from that. And you'll get through this time. And I just want to say thank you to Ian and Lauren and everybody for having me. Don't mean to get emotional, but I've been dying to say this on the show because I needed an opening. I couldn't do it. It needed to be when we're sort of talking about something that related or was a good opening. So I don't mean to get emotional there. I'll get over it in 2 seconds because we've got more questions and we've got more fun to have.
No, emotion is, no, you do what you feel. It's what it's for. That's the power of theatre. That's the power of music and the power of Rent.
And how did that all just happen? Like, how did that happen that, my life just fell apart? People are dying around me. And then the show that kept me going as a teenager happened to come about then. And I'm there at front row on opening night. Just a really, really special occasion. So I was really rapt to have met you in the week beforehand, obviously, because, you're in Rent and all that. And to have you on my show is a true honor. And you are our 100th guest.
Wow.
You might question what you might bring to the music, Fiona, but I promise you your legacy, your career is astounding. And as a Rent fan, I am so proud. Which might sound dumb, but yeah. Anyway, sorry to embarrass you, Spencer. We're going to move on.
Well, no, I'll say every time I walk into New York Theatre Workshop to see a play, you feel that aura. Every time, which this season has been a bunch, because for some reason he hates free time. Michael Greif has directed 3 musicals on Broadway this season, like right after the other. And you can see those elements that was him as a kid just getting started in Rent that he's now perfected as a director.
Mm.
And a little bit of copying. He tends to use a lot of scaffolding.
Oh, he loves his scaffolding. When I saw Next to Normal, I was like, is this Michael Greif? Yes, it is.
Hell's Kitchen,
Oh,
the Alicia Keys musical, which is also like New York, very scaffolding, very Michael Greif, but like perfected past that original moment. And it is a special show. Even when Shucked was at the Nederlander getting to sign the rent wall as I was invited as press to release party, like things like that. The show doesn't mean obviously as much to me as it does Aaron.
Maybe too much to Aaron.
I wasn't around, I wasn't born. But those moments of how special it is to the industry, every single time when you talk to people who worked on it or were a part of it, they just, it's this aura of Rent.
it captured a time, it captured a changing of the guard in a way. People say that, Hamilton is the new Rent, and people are always saying this is the new Rent. But I think what Rent did is that it was a culmination of all the cultures. I mean, you talk about your musicals versus metal, but, Rent was the musical that changed the trajectory of what it meant to be a musical. And not only that, but you could stand and sing and just feel. I mean, who knows what would have happened if Jonathan Larson hadn't passed away, or if it became something that, as most commercial musicals do these days, continue to develop and add on. But it's captured in a time. And in a way, its rawness and some of the things that are less polished or a bit clumsy about it in its writing and its execution, the fact that they're just kept like a timepiece in that way, that's its power as well.
What's so cool to me is it's been performed millions and millions of times as a piece of unfinished art because he passed away. That's to me, as a theater maker, what's so cool about it is it's unfinished. It isn't where it would have been. And I don't think that it would have been what it is now had he not passed away. No one knows. I don't think that the rawness of it, the experience of it would have been the same.
But also changed what it meant to be an artist. But anyways, we're going to move on because we are already running over time. I saw you in 17 recently, so thank you very much for inviting me down. I just want to throw in here that when I met you, right before I met you, I might have been a bit disheveled because we were sort of around the side of the theater and three older ladies that looked sort of older than 70 plus were walking along, and one of them stepped on one of those round ball things that are in the ground and she slipped over, right? And I sort of saw it happen, and I watched probably about 15 people walk past her, right? And this was literally like the 5 minutes before I met you, right? I watched, like, because we were across the way, right? And so I walked over there, and as I'm walking over, and I looked good, I looked decent, I had picked pants on, I had a really nice shirt on.
It did not occur to me at all that you looked disheveled, may I just say.
Oh, really? Because I was quite livid, to be honest, because as I'm walking over, the two ladies who were helping their friend up looked at me with fear on their faces, going, no, it's fine. It's fine. And I go, are you sure? Because you're struggling. You need help. And they go, no, it's fine. And then they took a further, 3 minutes or something to get her up off the ground, and then turned around and walked away. Didn't say thank you, nothing. And I sort of thought to myself, wow, this is the society we have become now, that an old lady will slip over in the street, but a strapping young gentleman can't help her up because it's seen as something aggressive or seen as something terrifying. They looked at me like I was a threat, and I'm like, I just want to help you. I've got concern on my face. I'm like, is she okay? Would you like a hand? I'm not very strong, but I would have at least been able to get her up off the ground in 20 seconds and not the 3 minutes it took them. Right. So we walked away from then, and I'm bitching and moaning to my nephew about it. Right. And because he had watched the whole thing happen. And that's when we saw you. And so I went straight up to you, and I was gone from that. Because I was quite offended, and I shouldn't be offended, but I also shouldn't be looked at as if I'm a threat if I'm going to help somebody. So it's sort of like,
well, you can't help how you occur to other people because that's their stuff as well. So it's not on you.
I know.
All you can do is present yourself as the lovely person you are. It happens to my husband all the time because he's a native New Yorker, and he's like 6'2", and he looks a certain way, and he'll always get stopped. Or when he's walking down the street, people will always cross the road because they think make an assumption. that is the times that we live in, unfortunately.
Yes.
Can't do that.
I know, right? Just to explain one joke in your introduction, because we are going to move on. I called you a rare Aussie unicorn because we've had so many Broadway performers on, and a Broadway unicorn is someone who hasn't been in Law and Order. But it is very rare that we get an Australian on who has been in Law and Order.
Yes. Oh, that's lovely. So I've been in Law and Order because I lived in New York for 16 years, but I've also been in Neighbours, the show that you don't call yourself an Aussie actor until you've been on Neighbours. So I've had the chance to do both on both sides of the ocean.
Yep. Exactly. And Neighbours just got nominated for a Daytime Emmy.
So if you were on a tour and needed stuff in your dressing room, what would be on your rock star rider, your biggest dream?
Oh,
What would you want in that dressing room?
No water. No water. No water.
I can't say water.
No.
Is that what you mean? Can't say water? I think I'm so boring that I might say Coke Zero because I'm a little bit addicted to Coke Zero. I would say, all right, if it's going to be like a full diva rock star,
Yeah.
I would ask for, well, this is what I do ask for whenever I get flown somewhere and am offered accommodation. I still try to get a bathtub in the bathroom. And it's becoming more and more rare. Lots of hotels and accommodations don't have a bathtub. I always want a bathtub. I want a humidifier for the voice, mi voce. And the only picky thing I have about my diet and snacks and things is that I'm gluten intolerant. Very boring. There you go. Rockstar Rider. Give me a bath with essential oils and gluten-free snacks to eat.
Yep. And lots of Coke Zero.
And lots of Coke Zero.
Well, so as someone with celiac disease, I feel your pain.
Yes.
It is getting easier and easier, but it's still not easy.
Do you know what was incredible? This is a little bit of a digression, but I went to Europe last European summer, and we were road tripping through Italy, and at the truck stop that had a McDonald's in it, McDonald's offered a gluten-free bun.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was just in London a couple months ago. Life-changing. Completely so much better than here.
Yes.
You walk in the door at a restaurant and they ask you right away. Completely different over there. In Italy, they test all the babies for celiac, and I believe you get a stipend if you have celiac as well from the government for gluten-free groceries.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So that's number one on my bucket list is Italy.
Yeah. You would think that the land of pasta and pizza would be very snobby about gluten-free, but they've really embraced it. Good on them.
Anyways, any experience with metal, heavy metal, glam metal, thrash metal, death metal, et al.?
Any experience? Well, I don't know what you mean by experience, but I have a husband that's very into metal and hard rock. I have mates that are in hard rock bands. So there have been times when I've had to go on stage and fake my way through it. Fake my way through singing a hard rock song, trying to belt out a hard rock song. But that's it, really. I do love Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
But I hadn't really listened to System of a Down until I had a little listen to your playlist. My husband plays bass and he plays in a band that does a lot of 90s covers. I've heard a lot of the tracks before. So to me, it's interesting if there's an interesting bass line. If there can be a funk and soul element to the bass line, then that's better for me than just, thrashy guitar and
rah, 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 rah.
Yeah.
Well, to bring it back a little bit, no, I'll talk about this when we talk about musicals because it relates to it.
Okay.
This is more musical related.
Sorry, I'm a bit of an all over the place kind of girl, aren't I?
Welcome to Thrash and Treasure, Fiona.
I'm not keeping to your structure.
No, that was me. You saying something that made me think of something that I'll talk about later.
Oh, right.
This is the nature of our show, for one thing. So don't feel bad about talking. We love to get everything we can get from our guests because we can't always ask people to come back to do ADR. So we can't, full stop, ask people to come back to do ADR. So please don't feel bad. You're not talking enough, full stop. Anyways, I am going to jump into my review now because this week we chose System of a Down's Steal This Album. So, when I first stole this album, I realized it was the third System of a Down album I've reviewed. So I hesitantly pressed play on the Spotify before quickly pausing it again as I remembered our guest's husband suggested this band, Bugger. So I optimistically pressed play again and was fed Chicken Stew by Tassie Devil with lyrics such as and spinning round and round like a cyclone. I can see why they need therapy. But I do wonder why it is not named after pizza. Innervision brands itself with an introspective sound, if more linear than what I'm used to. Of course, I speak too soon as introspect turns back into an outward release of blah, blah, blah. Bubbles pops with fast guitar complementing an almost militaristic drumming, which carries into the next track. Boom. Perhaps the bubbles popped. As the album continues, I can't help but wonder if the band ever finds it hard to stick to 1 or 2 ideas per song, as it feels like every song is trying to carry 5 or 6 ideas.
I completely agree. Sorry, am I allowed to interrupt?
Yeah, of course.
That's exactly what I think.
Yeah.
Yes, go, continue.
But without holding on to any idea long enough to be able to grasp them properly, which is a similar vibe to a band like Mr. Bungle, without the unadulterated sense of fun. Because if Old MacDonald had some fun, i.e. A-I-A-I-O, would be the outcome. With a cheeky exuberance, we're told how Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, but if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Hold for applause. Oh, I can't even hear that. Fucking Zoom. Goodness me. Anyways.
I also realized that I clapped away from my microphone, which I'm sure doesn't
But
help.
Zoom cancels it out. Anyways, there's lots of pep to pick out, plenty of darker moments, and more variety than what is maybe necessary. That's not to say all the songs are erratic and indecisive. Ego Brain, for example, takes a linear path without losing the darkness. I imagine this album would fit perfectly with Tassie Devil channel surfing with some killer moments that sadly don't stick around for long enough to satisfy fully. 3 stars. So is compared to Mr. Bungle, that Peter Piper's give me bloody wet lips. Compared to Mr. Bungle, where there was such an unadulterated sense of fun, the darkness here didn't come across as much fun. So it did, and a few times it felt a little bit labored in a way, but it was just, yeah, they just couldn't grasp enough. They should have, editing works, people. If they had taken out 3 ideas from a song, I probably would have been able to go on that up and down journey as much as I could have with Mr. Bungle, which is weird because Mr. Bungle is just as erratic, if not more, and out there and weird.
It's pretty mellow. There's a couple of real mellow songs that I was like, knowing this was the album that I've never listened to. And so when hubby said, when he found out it was still this album, he's like, that's their worst album.
Oh, really?
Why did you choose this one? And I think I might have to agree with you a little bit. Like the ideas are the same ideas, so they're just a little bit tired.
Yeah.
It's like they've got a few great go-to sounds, and they're kind of, they just had become a little bit exhausted by the time they got to this album, and so they seem very gimmicky with no payoff.
There was a payoff with Bungle.
Yeah, there is. But also, just being the person I am, I love lyrics. That's my taste. When I listen to music, rock, whatever it is, I want to hear the words. So when you can't understand the words, then I disconnect.
If you like lyrics, you should not see any new musical from the 2023-2024 Broadway season.
What are we talking about? How's Hell's Kitchen?
I am also a lyric person, which is why I've been very disappointed by the 14 of the 15 new musicals that I've seen this season.
Is there that many new musicals?
There are 39 new shows on Broadway this season.
Oh my goodness.
There are only 39 theaters on Broadway.
There are 41 theaters on Broadway. 2 are under renovation.
So there's 39 then.
Yeah, but you also have to think Book of Mormon, Hamilton, Chicago. So that's, there's like 9 long-running shows. But yeah, there's that many new shows. I've seen all but 2 of them.
Wow. Well, there you go. I haven't been back to New York since the last time I was back in New York was 2019, just before the pandemic. That's when I saw Hadestown. I saw Beetlejuice. What else did I see that season? And I saw The Inheritance.
Ah, yes.
Which was an incredible play. But I digress. Keep going. Keep us on track, Aaron.
Yep.
Go.
If you listen to the MIG ASA episode, we got way off track through that whole recording.
I'm sure.
It was impossible. And I had to literally say, okay, guys, my hands are on the wheel now. We're getting us back on track. Okay, I can't remember my exact response to the other 2 albums we had done. I think we did Hollywood, if that's what it's called, and Mesmerize. But I think it was the same feeling of such erraticity that was hard to cling on to certain moments.
The album to me felt like a parody of metal music. Like it felt like very shticky.
Yeah.
Like it felt like, oh, I'm going to put the word metal into AI and they're going to release an album like that. It felt like, well, not lyrically, but like, although I couldn't really understand most lyrics. But like, it felt like, oh, this is a generic metal album.
What occurred to me as I was listening to it, and because we are huge Eurovision fans in my house, and Eurovision is coming up this weekend, we love Eurovision for its gimmicky nature and all of that. And this really, so many of these songs felt like Eurovision songs to me.
Yeah.
Eurovision songs, I think they try to be the power ballad or they try to be the gimmicky, what is the fun, like Croatia last year or when Israel won. Like, let's just cram all these toys and into this one performance.
But that's a killer song. Let's admit that's a killer song.
Which one?
Toy by Netta, the Israel.
Yeah.
It is a killer song. They even did that on Drag Race. That's how good it is. Just to throw that in there, it's the problem I have with Eurovision is that it has been so few and far in between lately that we've had a song that expanded or went beyond Eurovision and was heard or seen in any other place. That used to be the case. Even like just a little bit by Gina G, like as 94 was probably the last time I can remember a song breaking out of Eurovision and becoming a hit anywhere.
You know that came from Eurovision.
Yeah.
I know Måneskin kind of broke out, didn't they?
I don't think in the way that sort of that song did, or certainly not in the way that ABBA did. Bucks Fizz, Making Your Mind Up.
Well, I think that might be the problem is we're comparing every Eurovision artist to ABBA in terms of popularity.
But I'd set them second, to be fair on myself.
Yeah, but to me, an American who has heard of it, when I think Eurovision, I think ABBA, and that's it. And actually Toy as well, because growing up, going to Jewish overnight camp, whatever the Israeli Eurovision song was that year was always big at camp every summer.
Of course it was.
And that song specifically has haunted me every time I've heard it because what year was that?
Was it like 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2019, I think, 2018.
2018. So that was, I was at camp for the first time for 8 weeks that summer, and people would not stop playing it. And every time I hear it, it's like I have PTSD.
That's a great song, Spence. What are you talking about? Anyways, but this album, I don't think there was anything like New Guns was probably the one catchy song that I took away from the album. But otherwise, there wasn't anything that from this album, like Eurovision, I haven't walked away going, I need to hear that song again, or that song needs to go on my playlist.
It made me think of other System of a Down songs that I would prefer to listen to other than anything else that was on this album.
Yeah. But to be fair, I picked it blindly because I don't know. I'm a musical guy. So anyways, if Spencer, you got any more thoughts on the album? Because I'm going to move us on to the next segment.
I'm good. Everything has been said. I didn't particularly love it.
So who's the rock guy here? Why?
Neither.
How did this concept come about? May I just quickly ask?
Yeah, that we originally had, it was me and a guy named Gareth, and he was big on metal. But he didn't want to do it with guests. But I think the format is stale with only two people who are nobodies. So we start bringing in guests, and he didn't want to do it with guests. So he quit like within the first 20 episodes or something. And then his brother took over for a year, and then he decided that he wants to make furniture. So he suddenly quit, and so now I've got Spencer. I've got an actor named Matt Young who's from Queensland, who was an American.
Oh, I think I know Matt.
Yeah, you probably would. He gets around a fair bit. Yes, I think you do know him. And he says hello.
Oh, hello, Matt Young.
And Jonathan Wagner, who was one of the Dewey. It's an Australian thing, Spencer. I'm not saying Jewish or anything. It's Dewey Finn.
No, I figured it out.
Yeah, so it's probably been like for the past 2 years you've been listening to it, and now I finally say something about it. He was one of the alternates of Dewey Finn, and
School of Rock was my first Broadway show.
Oh, was it? Oh, awesome.
Yeah, when I was a kid. My mom's from New Jersey, and so my grandfather lives there. And so when we were in one year for Thanksgiving, he took me in, and School of Rock was my first Broadway show. I've now seen over 150. But
wow.
Yeah, I just hit 150 last week.
Congratulations.
Wow. I saw School of Rock on Broadway.
Yeah, oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I had a friend in it. She was playing I'm not going to remember names. She's playing the school teacher. Rosalie, yes.
Jen.
That my friend Amy La Palmer played. Yes, Jen. Yes.
Jen Gambatese.
Yes, Jen Gambatese. We did a couple of workshops of a new musical together back when I still lived in New York.
I saw her in Mrs. Doubtfire a couple of years ago.
Oh, right. She's got a beautiful voice. As has, I'm helping you segue here, as has Amy LaPalmer, who played that role in Australia,
Yes.
who I was in Australian Epic with.
And thank you very much. Well, it looks like the system is down, so we better reboot during the ad break. From the producers of Thrash and Treasure, around the world in 80 plays, starring the adorable Lizzie B and Alfie Parker, and featuring the star of the show, Dolly the dog, they'll take you for a trip around the UK, exploring the rich arts and cultural history. But here is a sneak peek.
Long time no see. Welcome back to the second leg of Around the World in 80 Plays. I'm Alfie Parker, and that's
Lizzie B.
And we're joined as always by our four-legged friend, Dolly the dog.
Woof woof.
After a 2-month break from brand new episodes, we've boarded the bus for Bradford on the 8th stop of the Sister Act UK and Ireland tour.
Lots of Bradford love.
Lots of Bradford loving. Now, moving on to the tour. This week we've been performing in the Alhambra, as I said, and I believe this is Lizzie's moment to shine, to give us an insight.
Are you going to yawn all the way through it this week?
Yeah, last episode I was yawning a lot. This week, I don't think I'll yawn.
Are you going to interrupt me throughout?
Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe.
Let's see how it goes.
If anything really shocks me and I'm like, whoa, then maybe I'll exclaim.
Oh, I can't wait. Right, so, as Alfie said, we are at the Bradford Alhambra Theatre, and I personally think this is one of the nicest theatres in the UK, which always makes it worth going to Bradford. I'm having a lovely time.
Yeah, that's nice.
But I've had quite a cold experience there before because I've always stayed in hotels, like just bog standard hotels. As you said, walked 30 seconds to work, walked home. So I haven't gone out or done anything like that. But this time I'm having a totally different experience. But talking of the theatre, basically my point was the theatre is so nice. So here's my information taken from good old Wikipedia.
Here we go.
The theatre was built in 1913.
Ooh.
And it was built by the architects Chadwick and Watson of Leeds.
Not to be mistaken with Sherlock Holmes and Watson.
Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
This is going to lead on to another thing which Alfie always takes a mick out of me for, because everyone says Sherlock Holmes, but it's got an L in it. So I think it should be Sherlock Holmes.
No, you think it should be Sherlock Holmes.
That's not what I say.
That is what you say.
I say Holmes.
No, you say Holmes. Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. Lizzie says Sherlock Holmes.
I don't. I say Sherlock Holmes. I hate you so much.
Well,
oh dear.
Yeah, well, there you are.
Word in. I actually say it right.
Lizzie's totally right. But it's a silent... Yeah, it's a silent L.
So it's not Holmes. It's Holmes.
It's a silent L, isn't it?
No. It's not silent.
Might be. Sherlock Holmes.
Moving swiftly on. It was opened by theatre impresario Francis Laidler. And before you ask...
Riddler. Right, sorry, carry on.
I actually don't even know why I bother.
No, I'm
Are you
enjoying
taking
it.
any of this in? Who was it opened by?
Francis Laidler.
Right, before you've asked, I haven't researched him any further, but if anyone would like to...
Yeah, who is he then?
A theatre impresario.
They said that about me. Theatre extraordinaire.
Shout out to Jeremy Seckham, my OG theatre extraordinaire. If anyone knows how you become a theatre extraordinaire, please let us know.
I think I'm on track. I think I could.
Of course you are, dear. Right, more facts for you. The large domed turrets are iconic in the Bradford skyline, and they actually are.
Yeah, they are.
So
Fair play.
it's got 1,400 seats.
Is that it?
Oh, sorry.
No, it sucks because it feels so much bigger.
That's what she said.
Yeah, there we are. It does seem a lot big. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
You do. All right, 1,400 seats.
Start behind the Bradford Alhambra.
Call me the Alhambra.
Here's a cool fact. It was the main location, like the set on the film The Dresser, 1983.
They remake that.
Yeah. No, it was a play. It's been a play recently, but the film with, what's he called? Mooney. Alfred Mooney. Is that his name? Daddy Warbuck.
Oh, I don't know.
Doing a quick Google. Talk amongst yourselves.
Frederick Mooney. Alfred.
Albert Mooney. Albert Mooney. That's him, isn't it?
Anyways, we're back with Thrush and Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Spencer the Broadway Spy, and we are joined by the wonderful Fiona Choi. Now, you have been a casting guru, I believe. We're going to play a little casting game.
Okay.
If you were to cast a Rent film remake,
Oh, good
let's
Lord.
face it, it
Okay.
needs it.
Yes.
Using today's current crop of younger actors, who would you put in the roles?
Who would I put in the roles? Oh, that's so fascinating.
I have a good Roger answer.
Who is it?
Timothy Chalamet as Roger, because he can sing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but I'm saying that's who they would cast. Not that he would be good, but that's who they would cast.
Can he sing in that way though? Because the thing about Roger is he needs to have like a real rawness and a raw roughness to his voice.
He does. They're all sort of. He's broken. He's
Yeah.
a broken man. You need to hear that. You do not hear broken in Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, but that's who they would cast.
Timothy.
Is it Timothy?
Yeah.
Timothy.
I do think, though.
Zendaya might make a good Mimi.
Wow.
Yeah, I was literally about to just say that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Zendaya's Mimi. Yep.
Yeah. Who else? Who else is there? I can't even think of young people.
Kiki Palmer as Joanne.
Who's Kiki Palmer? Do I know Kiki Palmer?
I know her because she was in Grease Live.
Yeah, she was in Grease Live, and she was in.
But I know she's gotten big in the past couple of years because of not Grease Live.
She was a judge on Legendary.
Uh-huh.
She's a singer and actress. Like she started off as a child actor, I believe. She was in one of the Ice Age movies, but she's just charming. She's funny, and she's incredibly talented. So I would love to see her as Joanne.
But Sarah Pigeon from Stereophonic, Tony nominee Sarah Pigeon as Maureen.
But is she one of current big stars like it kids?
I don't care. Put her in that movie.
They'll put Glenn Powell as Roger.
Glenn Powell, can he even sing?
I don't know, but that's what they'll do.
That's what auto-tune's for.
Oh
Yeah,
my
true.
goodness. No. Look, you know what? Mark may not have to sing, but Roger has to actually be able to sing because that's his whole
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
He's got to get like lost in, you know.
They would de-age Hugh Jackman for Roger. That's what they'd do.
And he should totally come on this show, Hugh Jackman.
Huge Jackman.
I have a great randomly running into him story.
Did you invite him onto Thrush and Treasure?
No, his kid was actually touring the new school. And so he was in the lobby of our welcome center and just like he literally bumped into me and I'm like, wait, what? And before I knew it, he was gone. But Hugh Jackman ran into me,
Oh,
literally.
wow. Oh, goodness. Well, Rob Mills ran into me and spilt my drink on me. Anyway.
Oh, Millsy.
Oh, that was 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Something like anyways, okay, well, where would the characters be today?
Oh, wouldn't it be funny if they'd moved to the burbs?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would have kids and moved to New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's the thing to do.
Yep. And got a picket fence.
Would they? Would they though?
No.
I'm not sure.
Maybe Mark.
Yeah.
Mark would.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Collins started up a tech company and, you know, and he's making millions of dollars that he just gives away to philanthropy.
Oh, I hope so. Goodness me. How old would they be now? They would be in their 50s, nearing their 60s.
Mm.
Yeah. Or if Mimi ever cleaned up her act.
Do you know, it's really funny every time I see, because I watched Star Trek Discovery.
Yep.
And it had
Anthony Rapp. Yep.
it had Anthony Rapp, but it also had
Oh,
the guy-
Wilson.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
The original Angel.
Yeah, the original Angel. And had someone else come on as guest star as well. I can't remember who now, but yeah, it's fascinating to see everybody a little bit like in middle age.
Yep.
Reliving the glory.
That's what they call a midlife crisis, Fiona.
Midlife crisis. Well, when I was doing 17, as you came and saw,
Yep.
you know, I constantly was having Rent flashbacks because, you know, we made sure we created the look of my character with like purple streaks in her hair and and like baggy cargo pants, midriff showing. It was exactly what I used to wear in Rent.
Yep.
So I was constantly feeling like I was, 20 years had melted away.
Yeah, goodness me. Oh God, Spencer wasn't even alive when I saw that production.
Spencer, oh my
Gracious
goodness.
me. Anyways, we'll move on to Australian Epic. There was something I was going to throw in there. I can't remember what it is. Spencer, you have reviewed the musical this week, and there will be a pop quiz on our country afterwards.
Yes.
Spencer, this must be such a strange thing for you to have had to listen to with absolutely no context.
That is correct.
What were you told?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I was sent the album and listened to it.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. I'm so sorry because it's actually meant to be 6 very, very disparate stories because it was a television series. So it was 6 different episodes about 6 completely distinct and separate seminal events in Australian popular culture that you may or may not have ever understood.
So I figured that out halfway through the second listen when I Googled it, and I was like, I need to see a plot or like something because this really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, why is she singing this and then suddenly she's playing this whole other character?
Yeah, so I figured that out halfway through the second listen. I will say that first song,
Bali High.
I don't even know what the order of the actual album is.
As someone who has been forced to endure all the new musicals from this season that don't know how to open something and like create a world in one song, this song did it perfectly and made me so happy and made me know exactly how confused I was going to be for the rest of the album. But it really did that.
The other thing about it that, was very terribly unfair to bring you into an American into having to listen cold to Australian Epic is that it's just full of puns and references to in-jokes that you would only understand if you're Australian, like the references.
So I definitely understood a couple.
Yeah.
Yes.
At that same summer camp, we have a lot of Australian and British staff members. And there was my first summer that I worked there. It was me, my best friend, and 8 Brits, 2 Aussies. And so like by the end of the summer, we're the only 2 Americans who worked in the performing arts department. And so like we understood all the puns. There were things that I got in the album that a normal American would because of that. Also, I have Aaron.
Yes. Thank you.
Quick shout out there.
I actually think that what you say is true, that the structure, if you're just talking about the musical structure of the song Bali High, they're very clever. So Andrew Hansen and Chris Taylor wrote all the songs, and they're comedians. So every song is kind of like a tribute in style to, a musical style, as you would have.
A pastiche.
So it reminded me of Schmigadoon, the Apple TV TV show that is like a parody of musicals.
Yep, exactly.
Way. Like where it felt the same way to me, which is now going to be a stage musical at the Kennedy Center next year. They just announced the other day. I'm very excited.
Are you serious? Oh,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but not season 3. It's going to be season 1 again. Like, why not just do season 3 on the stage?
Yeah, but I don't know. He's written it.
I know,
but I'm very excited for that. But this reminded me of that as like the homage to the different styles.
Yeah, which is the intention, I think. Like, clearly the intention.
Yeah. That episode, the episode of Chappelle Corby, I think was the very first episode that they created. And it has all the classic traits and tropes of a musical. It does the callback, like the beginning of Bali High, that first song, it comes back, in her big ballad when she's stuck in jail and things like that. And it introduces all the characters. It has all these, it's very successful.
I'm also not really sure I've ever heard someone sing like with that strong of an accent from any country before.
Was that deliberate?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, she was playing Chappelle Corby, and just like when further on down the track, when in the episode of the Tampa, when I play John Howard, we definitely made a point of talking like John Howard, like, being very Aussie.
I have a problem with their accent. I think it sounds awful, and I don't like it. I don't know why.
People love it, though. People that are not up love it.
I know.
When I lived in New York, on many occasions, people would say, "Excuse me, can I just, where are you from?" And I would say, "Oh, I'm Australian." "Oh, you're from Australia. Oh, that's wonderful." For a moment there, I thought you were British. Like they hate the Brits, but they love Aussies. I don't know why.
I will say, though, I appreciated that you were playing real people and using their real accents.
Yes.
This play, Patriots, which is about Vladimir Putin and his rise to power,
Okay.
and they're all British actors, but they're all using British accents. They're not using Russian accents. And that took me out of it so much. And so, of course, I didn't know really the real people in this, but I, after Googling, found out that they were real people. And I appreciate that because it just like really took me out of this show.
Did it?
That they're all using British accents when they're playing. Saying Vladimir with a British accent does not give me the same power that saying Vladimir with a Russian accent does.
Well, what do you think then about the age-old discussion about, in Les Mis, for example? Like they've got British accents, and then the lower class, the Thénardiers, and they've got their Cockney, as opposed to. I guess it's kind of like everybody is within the same class system. I don't know. You speak English?
I think it's a metaphor of some sort, but I also don't like that show, so I'm the wrong person to ask.
Right. Fair enough.
I was just going to get us back on track with Australian epic because Les Mis is obviously an epic, and so it's. Oh, sorry, Spencer, you're still reviewing. Sorry, before I get in with the fun facts.
Sorry, yes, please keep going.
No, I mean, you go ask your question.
No. It was just
no. I mean, basically, it felt like Schmigadoon. I really liked that. There were moments that were really funny.
Did you have some favorite moments or episodes?
Greatest Wheel on Earth.
That's my favorite episode. So that's the finale. There's two parts to it. It starts off, actually, now that we've mentioned Les Mis, it does start off a little bit Les Mis-ish, the serious, the two characters talking about a little bit One Day More.
Yep.
And then it turns into something that always makes me feel like K-pop or something.
Also a Broadway show.
Also a Broadway show.
Very short-lived, but it was on Broadway.
Yeah. Do you know, we had to, when we were recording that one, they double recorded my voice to give it that poppy feel. And then because it wasn't actually in the best key for me to be able to sing it in the type of voice that they wanted, what they actually did was, don't tell anyone. We recorded it like a tone or two down, and then they just transposed it up. So that's what gives it that pop chick monkey.
I think the transposing also like gives it that sound too, because a lot of artists don't necessarily sing with real voices because they use autotune, and like it gave it that sound a little bit to use the transposition.
Yeah. But I actually really like all of the songs, the whole Wheel episode. They're the songs a little bit like Bali High. They move the action forward. Like there's a song in there where, it talks about how all the things break down in the wheel, and there's an actual journey as opposed to the song just stopping the show and capturing a moment that a lot of the other songs do in other episodes. But I'm really chuffed that you like that episode. It's actually, I think, a very successful episode because it's funny and it gives a lot of information and takes you on a journey in a way that not all the episodes do. But what do you think, Aaron?
Well, I do think it's very timely that now they're advertising a new Ferris wheel opened up in Melbourne because, the first one went so well, didn't it?
Oh, my goodness. It's still there. Every time I drive past it, I think of doing Australian Epic and thinking, rip wheel.
Pretty much. I never went on it. Okay, I love this, but I unfortunately didn't get to see the series. And when I went to sit down to watch it on ABC,
on
iView player, it's not there.
What do you mean?
They've taken it off.
Are you serious?
They've taken it off.
Have they?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The cheek of it.
Are you sure they've taken it off?
Yeah.
It is hard to find.
I couldn't find it anywhere to watch it. And the only performance that I could see on a search on YouTube was for Bali High, which perfectly encaptured my feelings about Australians in Bali. And one of the reasons why I don't put it on a travel list, because I don't want to go to a foreign country to see my own people, and especially to see my own people being so disrespectful to international laws and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly still why a lot of people go. I was in Bali last year and we did not stay in Kuta, but we went there for an evening. I took my teenage boys, and it was like seedy, it was disgusting, it was trashy, it was like the worst part of the Gold Coast or something. But Aaron, listen, if you go on my Vimeo page, and if listeners want to go on vimeo.com/Fiona Choi, there's actually a lot of the full musical clips on there that you can find.
Oh, good.
Yeah. There are some on my Instagram page as well, I think, because I'm sure you should be able to still find it available, but I certainly have a lot of those musical numbers on my Vimeo page. And the joy of doing that whole project was to be able to just basically film 6 separate, like, movie musicals. And it was the production values, the choreography, the staging, and each of them were done in a particular style. There's a whole episode which basically is a takeoff of Hamilton with the Princess Mary.
Yeah, pop quiz. Who is Princess Mary, Spencer? Or Queen Mary? Queen Mary now.
She's the queen now. It's true.
I've been on a boat called the Queen Mary. When I was in LA, it had like ghosts on it and stuff.
Well, okay. Mary Donaldson is a Tasmanian who at the Sydney 2000 Olympics was chatting to some very handsome Danish fellow. Is it Denmark?
Yes.
Yes, at a bar in Sydney. And he happened to be the Prince of Denmark. And they fell in love. And it's been a whole fairy tale romance.
So it's like the whole modern day fairy tale that, it took Australia by storm at the time, because it was like a commoner. A prince literally flew in, fell in love with a commoner from Tasmania, no less, which, is the big joke down here, is that how you feel about Tasmanians.
We love them.
Well, of course we love them. Yes, she went over there and she became a royal princess and now a queen.
The Queen of Lego.
The Queen of Lego, yeah. Yes, Michelle Brazier plays the Queen Mother in that episode. And I love her patter song, the Tasmanian song.
Obviously, anthology series is are like repertory theatre. You're going every season to see the same actors, or, new people come in, play roles, but it's like American Horror Story for people who don't go to theatre, and I hope we get a season 2.
Yeah, I hope so too. It was really fun because we got to be chorus people, but also leads in different episodes. It was like wigs and costumes. It really was a dream job, and it was the most fun we had all had. And now our whole cast members just went on to do such amazing things. Like, we filmed it during lockdown, and then we felt so excited that we had permission to actually, leave our 5-kilometre bubble. Because, Spencer, we were the most locked down city in the world at a point in time. Melbourne was, and for months at a time we couldn't get beyond our 5-kilometre bubble, except if you had a special permission. While we were filming this show, we were able to go and film on sets and wear masks and things like that. But since then, Phoenix, one of our cast members, went on to star in 6. One of our cast members went on to understudy the engineer in the most recent production of Miss Saigon. Sammy, who was in our cast, ended up playing in Hamilton. Amy, of course, ended up doing Anne Juliet.
Yep, and a former guest of our show when she was doing Tommy.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Anyways, okay, just 2 more things on this. I'd love to see a stage version, even if it's not the same stories, and at least this concept of Australian, very, very Australian stories. Now, there is actually one very Australian story that I've been dying to write a musical about, and I've asked people, can we collaborate and write music? And I've just gotten nowhere with it. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to put that idea out there. But if it ever gets done, I will message you both and I'll say that idea that I mentioned but didn't tell you what it was. It's just been bloody done.
Well, why don't you make it? You should make it.
I can't write music. I can write lyrics. I can write scripts, but I can't write music. So anyways, it looks like the Australian epic continues because I can't think of a funny segue. G'day listeners, Aaron here. While you're topping up your coffees, did you know that you can support our show and go on a fantastically scary adventure at the same time? Go to www.thetonistonTales.com/bookstore to grab your copy of The Toniston Tales, a darkly funny Aussie trilogy about a young boy who rescues injured animals in his spare time and the roller coaster ride he's taken on by a literal fish out of water. Written by me, the village idiot of Thrash and Treasure, you'll come to love Toniston Turnbull and the dozens of wacky characters that he meets along the way. And here is a sneak peek. Landing with a thud that echoes throughout the whole cottage, Toniston instantly rips off the manky shoes gifted to him by Milfred and tosses them into the corner behind a blue barrel. Without a second thought, the bully races down the hallway to the backmost room of the house and leaps behind his uncomfortable makeshift hay bed, then waits, and waits, and then waits some more, until finally, what seems like an eternity later, muffled growls start vibrating through the thin walls of Cubpaw's cottage. He tries to control his breathing, but his heart is racing way too fast. Toniston ducks down further. Nothing should be able to see him, but he can't be sure they won't smell him. The gruff growling grows louder. Toniston presses his ear against the cold, chipped, chalky wall. He thinks he can make out phrases like, "Where is it?" and "Give us the merge," though not much else. It's all too mumbled, and he's shaking too much. But it doesn't matter anymore. The front door of the cottage slams open with a harder, louder cracking thud than it ever had before. A dozen or so stomping footsteps enter. The cottage shakes uncontrollably as if it is as terrified as our friend the bully is. Toniston panics. He's trapped in a corner with a slew of sharks on his trail. He makes a sudden rash decision. Ripping aside the thick animal hide curtain, Toniston leaps through the small oval-shaped window head first, landing on a crate filled with hay sitting outside it. Mustering every ounce of manliness he has not to react verbally as he lands with a crunch on the sharp, pin-like hay. It pierces his skin in several places, but thankfully, in his panicked state, the bully becomes numb to the pain. Counting his blessings but not his chickens, Toniston struggles out of the crate by throwing his legs over and levering himself up, causing the coral underneath his feet to snap. He loses balance and tumbles. To describe the pain of tumbling face first down a steep hill of hard, sharp, deadly-shaped coral would require far too many swear words than this author would be allowed to publish, so let's just say it hurt. A lot. With one last somersault, Toniston's legs fly first over the cliff's edge. Crunch. His left hand grabs hold of the outmost jagged knob of coral. The stocky body of the 10-year-old child sways rapidly back and forth like some sort of death-defying pendulum. He gasps for air, or from shock, not even Toniston can tell. All he knows is above him a deadly coral cliff and deadlier sharks. Below him, larger, sharper coral under a sea of giant, sharp spikes of natural metal. His head throbbing and vision too blurred with bright red splotches to be able to see clearly for too long. His face is dripping with blood. It runs down his shirt front, tickling him in the process. But all he can do is swing there. It's moments like these that a boy really needs his mum. Unfortunately, while Toniston's life hangs in the balance, on Earth his life was, dishonestly, being celebrated by all at Gumbaya Primary School after news of the bully's disappearance had spread like wildfire through the tiny town, then onto the music industry before eventually reaching the wider world. Rock music fans, specifically those of Muzzletop, had flocked to the outskirts of Melbourne, leaving wreaths, band posters, and hand-drawn tributes to honour the missing son of their favourite singer. Although none of them knew the boy, many had seen him standing on the side of the stage of the band's concerts alongside Tina. Also, at the time of his disappearance, hundreds of the world's entertainment media lined the streets outside the school and, sadly, outside Tina's house. Wanting any word they could get their greasy hands on, the gossip came in thick and fast as snide, bored neighbours took it upon themselves to speculate and make up stories for their 5 minutes of fame. Inside the house, the phone ringing 10, 15 times a day from nosy TV stations, hounding the poor, terrified mother, there was no escape. And whilst Tina was never polite in her declination, still they persisted. "Call me again and I'll punch you in the nose," she promised. The school's principal, Mr. Patterson, had himself realised how cold and nasty it would look if Toniston Turnbull's former victims didn't at least pretend to mourn his disappearance. And thus, with an added paranoia of becoming a suspect, Mr. Patterson set out to overcompensate with memorials and dedications to the boy who touched all our lives with his love of animals. Mr. Patterson felt satisfied his school's image was intact. The largest memorial from the school came in the form of a service in the gymnasium, with every student, teacher, news reporter, and local police in attendance. Mr. Patterson sought to show the world just how much Toniston had meant to the school. The service would have made the bully puke. From the awful school choir butchering his least favourite songs, to the obnoxious releasing of the White Doves, Mr. Patterson may have been satisfied his memorial service paid tribute, but Toniston is far too cynical for that. And yet, whilst hundreds of people sat on the cold plastic seats in the Gumbaya Primary School auditorium, not one person in attendance truly knew Toniston when he was around. But all alone, in her large house, the animals all shunned outside, Tina Turnbull sits with her umpteenth glass of wine, ignoring the umpteenth phone call from friends, fans and family, but most sad of all, wondering, for the umpteenth time, what she could have said to her only child to have brought the two of them closer together. A now broken photo of Trent Turnbull and an infant Toniston only hours after his birth sits at her feet under the table. Tina simply doesn't care about the million tiny shards of glass cutting up her feet. She just wants her son back. And as if joined at the soul, while dangling from the lavender-coloured dead coral cliff face, somewhere in his head voice, Tina's cries are heard by the boy. His face scrunches up, but then it relaxes. I can do this. Grab your copy of The Toniston Tales from thetoniston.com/bookstore today. Hooroo! Anyways, we're back with Russian Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Spencer the Broadway Spy, and we are joined by Australian icon Fiona Choi.
Yay!
Now, what is one thing you are hopeless at that everybody else seems to be perfectly good at?
Oh, what is something that I'm hopeless at that everyone else seems to be good at?
Shall we ask your kids? Sorry.
Yeah, probably. I'm terrible. I'm actually really terrible on the computer.
Mhm.
So if ever I'm trying to like hook up a new, say I don't even, like I always have to get my tech support to come in, my sons to come in and say, look, Mum, you just go like this. You just do this. Even hooking up, on Zoom or something like that. It's not easy for me.
Do they do that thing where, like, my nephew does it all the time when he shows my parents something? He would just like hold the phone there and just go blah 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 blah, and that's how you do it, and hands the phone to them, and he expects them to have kept up.
That's right.
Kids, slow down. We're older than that.
Yeah, no way. I know. Exactly.
Spencer?
Huh? Oh, you're asking me the question?
Well, I'm asking you for your question.
Oh, I thought you were asking me the question, and I was like,
Well, you can answer as well. What are you hopeless at?
I have fans in my apartment that have like the hidden light bulbs in it, and the light bulbs went out in my kitchen today, and I had to ask my dad for help for like what I need to do to unscrew it to figure out the light bulbs.
Oh, that's what you're hopeless at. Screwing on a light bulb.
Isn't that a joke? How many idiots does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Yeah, exactly.
Ha ha ha. That's right.
I think I am hopeless at navigation. I think it was something that my mother passed down to me because she's horrible at it as well. I've now learned it after 2 years of living here, but like even the Manhattan grid system, I didn't get uptown, downtown. Like it was so confusing. I still sometimes get lost in the subway system, especially if it's like east-west, because that's even more confusing.
The only way I finally learned east-west is because I went to WAPA, which is the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts, and only from knowing that Western Australia is on the left side, I still think to myself, west. Where's Western Australia?
Yeah. Look, my lefts and rights, instinctively I know them, but I still have to go like that if I need, like if someone asks me which way's left, I will have to go like that to say that's left. Anyways, questions, Spencer?
My favorite thing about theater is the collaboration. What is your favorite thing about performing in theater?
Well, it's based on collaboration. I really love the sharing of energy between those of us on stage and those in the audience. Like you can really feel it. The most recent play that I did, which is 17 at the Melbourne Theatre Company, I could, every night was different because it was such a show that was about nostalgia and appealed in different ways, whether you were a teenager or whether you were actually, an older person in your 60s or 70s, or whether you were a person in your 30s. So depending on the makeup of each audience, we would get different reactions at different points in time. And it was palpable. You could really, really feel it. You could really feel that tonight my character, Lizzie's, the younger character was everyone's favorite character because everyone was young and understood her energy and understood her references. Or the night after it would be, everyone would be the most most moved by a beautiful love scene or a walk down memory lane between these two other characters, because everyone was in the audience was of the demographic of 50s and older. So it's this beautiful energy that gets shared between an audience and cast that you can't recreate, and you just ride it, and it's like a conversation. That's my favorite thing about performing. That's the main difference between doing stage and doing screen. You don't get that on the screen. Sometimes when you're filming something, you give your heart out, but then you don't get that immediate feedback, and so you can't tell, did that work? Was the magic there? Because you're not getting it back.
Which is funny, because I would say that film and TV are a medium that calls for rewatching, but theatre, I don't think that invites people to go and see the same people perform the same show 20 times and compare each night, like, and to say to the cast members, you were better last night. Like, I don't think theatre I think it was designed for that one-off feeling, that vibe, that energy that you get. It wasn't designed to then go back and back and back, I don't think. But film, which doesn't have that energy, is designed for that, which I think is weird. But Spencer, I think, disagrees with me.
So I rewatch. I don't rewatch often, but if there's a show that really speaks to me, I do. I pointed the right way. I'm so proud. Kimberly Akimbo, which is on my wall right there.
Oh, you pointed right at it.
I saw 8 times, including I was just at closing. No, it was almost 2 weeks ago. Every time I saw it was completely different. And the energy, I was there both the night after they won 5 Tonys and at their closing. Just in that room of people who love this show and love this story, every time is different. And I will also say the key to rewatching personally in theater is bringing someone who hasn't seen it before with you.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. That's a lovely point.
That's the one that I've probably seen the most. I was close. Saw this one 5 times.
What's that one?
That's Diana the Musical. Was on Broadway for about a month.
Oh,
Yeah.
How was Diana the Musical?
I love it. It is so camp. It is on Netflix. It is incredible. Aaron is wrong about this and will not be allowed to speak on it.
Okay. All right. Now I want to watch it.
I'm a dissenting voice, apparently. I just want to throw it in quickly before we move on. We got invited back to see Rent again.
Mr. Anti-rewatching, and then goes back and rewatches stuff.
Yes, I know. But we're talking about the vibe that, like, we've gone on opening night when I was emotional and, was all like, I'm so happy to be here. Seeing it again did give me a chance. And seeing it from not front row, it was a different perspective on the show, and allowed me to think and focus more on their interpretations and their staging. But that is a show that I have already seen 50,000 times and heard 50,000 times more. So it's a bit of a difference than these people who go to Wicked 16 times in a month and keep hitting up the alphabet and saying, oh no, you sounded better last night. Or
see, but who rewatches things and talks to the actors? I think maybe that's an Australia thing.
That's a Broadway thing. What are you talking about?
No, I mean, I know people who are friends with the actors who see stuff multiple times, but you don't say, oh, you were better last night.
People do. Hey, haven't you been listening to Lizzie and Alfie on the show? Anyways, what's your favorite time of the year in New York City? I'm moving this along again.
I was just going to say that Rent was, when I did Rent, there were, the Rent heads would come back. Every time there was a different combination of characters, and everyone did have people do rewatch musicals to come on and see the understudies, to watch the swings, and they have their favorite of who plays what role, which track.
Which I think is, having your favorites is one thing, but telling the performers,
that's
is another
cool.
thing. And stage door is just ugly.
But like, I'll go back to Wicked every year or so when they get new people, because they do give different performances. Also, Wicked, I'd like to see right now, soonish, because it always gives me hope for the art form, where after seeing a bunch of like not amazing theater, Wicked is the show that always like washes out my brain.
Palate cleanser.
And like gives me hope again.
It's definitely a well-oiled machine. That show.
Yes, tell me about it. And it comes across. I'll cut that out. Okay, favorite time of the year.
It does. I want them to close it and give someone other than Joe Mantello the chance to direct.
We'll give the cast a bit of freedom. Full stop. Give them a bit of freedom to find the character.
Last year they did. I saw last year the 20th anniversary cast, and it was the first time that the original creative team came in and were with them in the rehearsal room. They had a full, like, normal rehearsal period, and they changed out in all the principals, which they do a lot in the UK. That's not really common on Broadway, to like change out an entire batch of principals.
Yeah.
And they did, and it made such a huge difference to the performances.
Just to be fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
You know, people hadn't worked with Stephen Schwartz in 20 years. He hadn't been in the room for new
Yeah.
principals. And so like
A new
I
perspective.
mean, of course, also reopening, I felt that like they were talking about it with Phantom, with Wicked, with Lion King. This was the first time these directors and composers and writers were in the room for a new cast or to like, and were able to
Rejuvenate.
really work on the show and rejuvenate. That's a
Yeah.
great word, Aaron.
Thank you. Well, it's a difference between a person who's alive doing it and then tampering with the work of someone who has passed. Once they're dead, leave the work alone, like in Rent. But anyways, favorite time of the year in New York City. I'm definitely moving us along.
What I miss the most of all, and every Christmas, because I was in New York for 16 years.
Oh, wow.
So now, even though I'm a Melbourne girl and Australian born and bred, it doesn't feel like Christmas. Summer does not feel like Christmas. And part and parcel of, having a winter Christmas was also because in New York, we would always have Christmas with the Croatian side of the family. And so we'd have all the roasts, all that traditional food, the goulash. And I really, really miss it. Barbecue for Christmas is not a Christmas meal. No fairy lights, no rugging up, no beautiful. The decorations just don't make sense after having done it in New York.
No, you totally get that. I've never seen snow.
My answer is fall.
Why?
I love the fall when it's just cold enough where you can wear a sweatshirt, but you don't need a big heavy jacket. Like I love that weather. Right now is my least favorite because one day it's like 50 or 60 and the next day it's 80 and there's no consistency with the weather. I just would like them to pick one.
You should come to Melbourne. If you don't like the weather, just wait a minute.
The inconsistency is nothing compared to Melbourne, Spencer. It's true.
Melbourne's ridiculous.
I love driving upstate, going through the fall foliage. Have you done that as they change colours?
I have not, but I would like to go. As I am ending my time at college within the next year, I would like to make my way out upstate and New Jersey and experience the area more and not just in the city, although I love the city.
Okay, what's one role you finished up feeling the most satisfied with your work?
There's two. Can I say two?
Yeah.
Because I really, really loved playing. The baker's wife in Into the Woods.
Yeah.
Because it was the role that inspired me to love musicals, that sort of musicals, substantial musicals. When I was an 18-year-old dreaming to be in musicals, but also by the time I got to play it, James Miller and I were the baker and the baker's wife, and we were really able to put our own stamp on it because we were older than your average baker and baker's wife. So there was like a particular poignancy about us being a middle-aged couple wanting to have children, and I got to be the baker's wife that wore pants. I really loved putting my own stamp on that role. So that was very, very satisfying. And the other role that I have really loved to play has been the role of Julie in Golden Shield, which was on at the Melbourne Theatre Company. She was like a hard-ass American lawyer. So it really felt like I was in a Netflix conspiracy, fast-paced action legal thriller. So that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up Into the Woods. I will say, to go back to what we were saying before, I saw every cast of this recent production that was on Broadway because I love that show so much. It was the first show that I worked on in theater. I was the spotlight operator for it in middle school.
That is so adorable.
And so that show is so special to me. I saw the production when it was at City Center. I saw it 4 times on Broadway. I love that show, that production. Getting to see Sarah Bareilles sing The Baker's Wife was just one of the most glorious performances that I've
Really? Wow.
Also, Neil Patrick Harris as the baker.
Yeah.
Fascinating casting.
Shout out to Joanna Gleason, who joined us on the show.
Oh, my absolute hero. Yes.
She's so wonderful. She really is. And I had her husband on as well, Chris Sarandon. Have you ever gotten into a laughing fit on stage?
Constantly. Always.
Yeah? Oh, wonderful.
Always. It's the best. I actually really enjoy it. It's so alive. Sometimes it's more appropriate than others. It used to happen all the time in Rent. And not only do I love getting into laughing fits on stage, I actually love getting into a laughing fit on camera, like in Population 11, which is on Stan right now.
Yeah, oh, that's great, by the way. I meant to say before.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hopefully, I'm not sure where it's going to appear, where it's going to stream in the United States yet, but Lionsgate made it, so I'm sure it's going to find a home somewhere because we have an American star. But I think it really captures a real aliveness. So we were really encouraged to, ad lib and impro and to try and crack each other up, which Ben Feldman was very good at. So that was a lot of the play that happened in Pop 11. So yeah, awesome times.
Now, when we saw Rent on opening night, because of where we were, there was a scene where Mimi sort of threw her heroin bag down and it went straight at my nephew. And so I walked out of the theater going, the stripper threw her heroin at my nephew. I'm so proud. Like my 14-year-old nephew, even though that's like terrible, awful thing, but I couldn't help but laugh.
Yes.
But here's this dramatic moment. And Martha's performance, oh my God, she was an absolute standout in that. But anyways, Eurovision, who's going to win this year?
Hey, apparently Croatia is a favourite. Is that right?
Apparently, yeah.
Have you guys heard this as well? I don't know what happened in the heats. We're going to watch it tonight.
Okay, yeah.
Do you already know? Don't say anything.
I actually didn't watch this morning's semi-final because I got up, I was awake watching it, but the audio was so out of sync that it was like SBS dubbing from 1992, like when they used to dub the movies.
I read that somewhere. Yeah, right.
You mean 10 years before I was born, Aaron?
Yeah, it was just really, it was so distracting that I'm like, no, screw it. I've got a recording coming up. That's, that's more important now. So I just went to bed earlier than what I was going to. But I was literally having KFC at 5:30 in the morning to celebrate Eurovision. Okay, now what would you have worn to the Met Gala?
Oh, what would I have worn to the Met Gala? Something red and invoking, because it was all about gardens, right? And blooming and things like that. So I actually felt like everyone was very muted in terms of their color scheme. And I just keep thinking, where's the, where's the bright red? Well, in line with my hero, Anna May Wong, I suppose, something that might have some really, cherry blossoms, something that was a bit Asian inspired, but cherry blossom garden. That's what I would have liked to have done.
I would have gone as Groot.
Groot! Why didn't anyone? I wonder why didn't anyone?
I know. It was a mix of garden and technology. So why not go as a digital gardening character? What would you have worn, Spencer?
I would have declined the invitation.
Would you? Would you really?
Because I was at the musical Illinois on Monday night and probably enjoyed myself much more than the people at the Met Gala.
Oh, really? Well,
But I figured out a question, Aaron. This is a good one.
Yes, go on.
What is your favorite piece of theater that you've ever seen?
That's sorry. I won't criticize.
No, but it's interesting because some people answer, people who are in theater, I think, who act, I think, have such a different perspective as an audience member. And so what is that for you?
Oh my goodness. I always have such a tricky time when people ask me my favorite anything.
Or what is a piece of theater that you've seen that has stuck with you? How about that?
One of my favorite musicals is actually Hadestown.
Yeah.
I loved watching it. And I think the main reason I loved it so much is because at the time I purposefully knew nothing about it. You know how you can, people know the show and then they go in there and they watch it, something that they already know all the music to. And so the whole show is just sort of like, is this matching with what I expected to see?
Yeah.
Is this up to scratch and everything like that? But I knew nothing about Hadestown. And so I just sat in there. And from the minute it started, I was like, what is this world? What is this style? What's going to happen now? So every new voice that came on was like a new part of this tapestry that I wasn't expecting.
I keep saying to my mom, because I'm going to see the Outsiders musical in the next couple of weeks and have no exposure to either the book or the film.
Oh, wow.
And I've tried to keep it that way for every adaptation this season. The only film or book adaptation that I had any experience with was Back to the Future. And Outsiders, Water for Elephants, Notebook, even The Great Gatsby, I'd never read or seen any of the movies. I'm trying to be raw going into it and not know anything about it. And she doesn't understand it because she's a she loved The Outsiders as a kid, and she's like, Spencer, you should watch the movie before. And I'm like, no, I want to go into it treating it as an original piece, because otherwise I have like adaptation issues with it as a story, and I think that judging it as its own thing is really important.
I didn't know anything about Rent when I saw it. I knew Seasons of Love, like everyone else knew that song. So that's why it smacked me around, being this really tortured, bullied gay kid who I was, quite frankly, I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to die. I sort of felt like I was in purgatory for much of my childhood and teenage years. And I saw this show and it smacked me the hell awake. It really did. And I had no idea, but had I known what it was about, I probably would have gone in with sort of expectations or whatnot. And also Sweet Charity, we didn't know anything about that when my mum took me to see that at 13 years old or 12 years old. And that was eye-opening. Very much so, because it was a very sexy production.
The first time that I saw Sweet Charity, it was a production in the round.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first times that I realized like directing was a skill.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just like, oh, you go here, you go here.
Yeah.
A show like that in the round is what made me realize that.
I did Sweet Charity in high school, actually.
Yep. This production of Rent was an all-white production except for 2 cast members. The same director did the year before Hair with only 2 cast members of color. And you do not do Hair with a mostly white cast. Full stop. That is not the show for it. There may be some shows where you can get away with it. That you cannot.
I can never understand it when you can just choose a different show. Why choose to do something if you can't actually cast it properly? Like, why? What is the point?
I remember in the summer of 2020, the writers of Hairspray put out a statement and changed the licensing agreements that you can't do all white productions. And in my head, when I read that, I'm like,
who would do an all white production?
What is the point of Hair? Like, that's literally the entire message of the show. There is no message if you make it all white.
But then you go to a country like Japan and you'll see an all Japanese production of it because the culture there is different. They also don't have the diversity that we have over here. And we certainly have in the western suburbs of Melbourne. So there wasn't an excuse for it then.
There's never an excuse for it.
No, how do you do the white boys, black boys number? How they did it was disgusting. But anyways, we're going to move on because I've only got a couple of questions left. Can you do any celebrity impersonations?
No, I don't think I can. I can do hang on. Can I do any celebrity? Well, I can do a John Howard, as people have seen on Australian Epic, but I won't even try to do it now. Yeah. People can go to my Vimeo page and watch Australian Epic.
Yes, we'll put the link below.
No, I don't think I can do any. I can, aside from the usual crap, the Carol Channing and the,
Raspberry.
Raspberry corn. I don't remember eating corn.
Yes. Yes. So in our very first episode, I go, corn. I don't remember having corn. Though I have been trying a new one lately. It's really bad still.
Oh, I'm going to destroy the earth. Isn't that lovely?
But I gotta warm it up. Okay, now have you ever had a Bradbury moment?
Oh, have I ever had a Bradbury moment? That's a good question.
Thank you.
Have I ever had a Bradbury moment? Let me have a think. Oh, well, always just doing anything, getting up and performing on stage. Yep. But, it always surprises me when people, to get to the end of anything and get an applause. I can't think of any good examples, though. I can't. Sorry. No. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Last one. When was the last time you rolled down a hill for fun and not because you slipped over?
And not just because I was pushed over. Is that what you just said?
No, slipped over or pushed over.
Slipped over. I actually fell down the stairs yesterday in my own house. So I'm sort of hobbling a little bit today. The last time I rolled down a hill, I think it was just before I moved from New York. When I lived in New York, I lived close to Long Island City, where the Pepsi Cola sign is. And there's a hill there. And I was with my kids and we rolled down that hill on a play date.
Oh, fun.
So that was about 10 years ago now.
Yeah. Oh.
Yep, joyful.
But as we get on, it becomes more and more painful. You haven't fallen asleep on us, Spencer, have you?
No, sorry.
He hasn't.
I thought he had.
Almost. He almost
thought
did.
he
He
had.
almost did.
Very close.
He almost did. I tell you what, now, one of my old lady things, because there's a lot of old lady things that come creeping in.
Yeah.
And one thing I do, if I have to get down, even if it's for a yoga class, getting down onto the floor or having to get up, I have to do the accompanying,
Yes.
like it actually helps.
I do that too, and I'm only
Ugh.
22, so I think that might be an everyone thing.
It
Yeah.
might be an everyone thing. Yes, it does help.
Yeah.
It does help.
You have to sort of do the rollover thing first. So you have to
Yes.
get into a position that you can actually, like, wait, I had to pick my dad up the other week. He fell off his bed. And then 6 hours later, we found out that he had COVID. Great. Thank you.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I did end up getting it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Listen, you guys, I've actually got a good answer to the Bradbury question now that you've made. Shall I do it now?
Yes.
You can put it in?
Yep.
I actually think I Bradburied my way into getting into the original cast of Mamma Mia, because I used to have this nervous thing where, I'd stop being able to hear myself sing and I would sing off key. And it was just something that happened in nerves. And I swear, like every step of the way, every audition I did of Mamma Mia, and especially at the final callback in front of the British musical supervisor, and I don't know if it was Benny or Bjorn, but one of them were in the room. And I went in there and I sang my song, and truly, I kid you not, because I could hear it even as I was doing it. I sang the whole thing. Like my intonation was terrible. Like if I had been on Australian Idol, they would have said, "Oh, pitchy." It was a little bit pitchy. I was definitely pitchy. But luckily for me, I left there and I thought they're not going to call me back in. And I think luckily for me, in the room were the company manager, and it was being cast by a lot of the same producers that had worked with me when I did Rent.
Oh.
Yeah, John Robertson and Christopher Green. And I think clearly they discussed me in the room, and they must have said, "We've worked with her. We know her. It was just nerves. She normally, she can sing, and she can sing in tune, and she's a very, very good company member." So after like 5 nervous minutes of waiting outside, they came out and they said, "Fiona, just come back in here." And the musical supervisor took me into a private little room and he said, "Look, I know you're nervous. Sing your song again, and we're just going to take it slow, take some deep breaths." And he gave me this extra time and extra chance to sing my song again with just him, just to prove that I could sing in tune, which I did, and then I booked the show.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So I feel like it's just incredible that I ever got in.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Oh, awesome.
Was that
And-
Bradbury? Was that a Bradbury moment?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, it may not. It may or may not have been.
Technically, it's meant to be everyone else falling down around you, I think. but-
Oh, okay. Well, you can cut it then.
I don't know.
Then get rid of it.
No,
Cut
but
it,
I guess
cut
it still works because he stumbled his way to that finish line. Let's face it, by sheer dumb luck, he made it in first place and
By
got that
sheer dumb luck. Yeah.
and got that goal. Like I don't know if you know, Spence. Like everyone fell down. Our first gold medal in the Winter Olympics, I believe, was an accident.
It was. It was. There were certainly lots of Bradbury moments in the company of Rent. There'd be times when we would be all so sick that, we literally, like, an hour before the show, we would have to gather in a huddle at backstage and basically, have this like almost like a cough off. Like, who is the most sick?
Yes.
And, and there were performances where people were just, it was like, who is the least sick? And you can go on.
Yeah.
And I know that there were a couple of performances where, I was sick as a dog, but because everyone else was sicker, I would have to go on and actually do 2 roles at once.
Oh goodness me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Truly, Fiona, it has been an absolute honor. It really has. All you guys in Rent have changed my life, and Jonathan Larson and all that. And so to have you on my show and to be able to celebrate your career in this way is a true honor. So thank you so much. So where can people find you on the social medias?
You can find me at Fiona.Choi on Instagram. You can, as I say, see clips of things that I've done on vimeo.com/Fiona Choi. You can go to IMDb. That's it. I'm not a fan of X. Ever since it became X, I've exited out.
Yes, no, I've refused to call it that. It is still Twitter in my eyes. But yes, no. My neighbors decided now's the right time to start soaring something, so we'll let you go. Thank you so much.
So great to meet you.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. I've completely just bumbled my way through that. I'm sure there'll be heaps of things to cut out.
No.
So daggy.
Listen to our previous episodes. I bumble my way through every episode. As I say, even if I'm scripted, I'm doing a Bradbury every time because I'm just everything. The world will fall apart around me, but I will just somehow make it to the finish line first. A huge thanks to Fiona for joining us. That's it from us. Check below for the details on everything and all the links. You take care of yourselves. Thank you for listening, and we shall see you next time. Uru.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Like quicksand!